Good evening, everyone, and welcome to QTV. I'm Ritika Bhandari from GHPS Hemkund Colony, New Delhi. I'm HOD Chemistry over there, and I'm also a resource person with All India Educators Forum. And today, and with me is Dr. Narjeet Bhatia, who is an administrator, an author, and recipient of many awards in the education field. And both of us will be talking about experiential learning. Now, what exactly experiential learning is and what is the requirement of experiential learning? So we know that teaching children is an accomplishment, but making children excited about learning is something what is achievement. So what we observe today is that students are not easily engaged in studies. They get distracted easily. They are not interested. And that's a persistent problem with our education system. And this we have been seeing from last so many years, because even after 74 years of independence, we are still following a colonial system of education, what Britishers had made. We are still finding our students not interested in learning because they are given a curriculum which they have to cram and they have to deliver during their exams. They are not connecting their curriculum to the real life situations. And this is what is wrong in our education system. And the role of teacher is also active here, but the students have a passive role. They are not involving themselves in learning process. So what is the need of our is a change in education system, a change in learning process, where we can bring a change so that our students are connecting everything to the real life situation. Now, what happens is that before we teach them, they are already cramming the things and the mind is already full of something. They don't think about it. That thinking process stops because we just feed on the information. The information is fed into their minds and they are not giving a thought to it that what exactly the thing is. We need to change that system. If we talk about India, now India has got a beautiful history, beautiful cultural system, where we had a Gurukul system, and education was not bound in the four walls of a classroom. We used to think beyond the classrooms. Our system was such that we had people like Rabindranath Tagore who talked about art and aesthetics. We had people like Sri Aurobindo who talked about mental and psychic development also along with education. But our education system now has become a one-way curriculum where a teacher is an instructor, she is giving instructions, and the students are just following it just to get good percentages, just to get good marks, but they are not actually learning about what role that will play in their real life situations. So we need to change our system where we need that there should be discovery rather than delivery. There should be something exploring. There should not be repetition of things, but there should be creation of something. And instead of certifications, we should have skills, because skills development is very, very important. And how will that happen? That will happen when a child experiences. And that is what we call about experiential learning. So experiential learning is a process where there is experience in life, where there is interaction of environment. And when the environment and our five senses are in touch, we are enriching our five senses, because those five senses are actually bringing that process into us, that we are interacting with the environment. Then we start learning. A very simple thing, I just want to tell you, we may read books, we may hear something, but we just can't learn unless and until we get an experience out of it. Experience is, I think, the best teacher. No one can, learn riding a bicycle unless and until he or she will try riding a bicycle. If somebody tells, okay, this is how you are going to ride a bicycle, you will sit and you have to balance and you have to paddle, what will happen? They will not understand what exactly is the way of a bicycle. Nobody can learn bicycle just by hearing or by reading. One has to try. And when one tries, then they explore various techniques, then they learn. And this is how the process should go on in our education system as well. We need to explore, and we need our students to explore. So we have to design activities where we are giving them experiences. And when they experience, only then they are able to follow it in their life. So we cannot cross the sea by merely seeing it, and we need to swim across. That is very, very important. And if a person really wants to learn something, then experiences are very important, and that is what experiential learning is. So I hand over to Narjeet Bhatia, who will be telling more about what exactly experiential learning is and how schools can follow experiential learning. So over to you, Narjeet.
Well, very well put forward, Ritika ma'am. Began with a great note talking about experiential learning, something that is really gaining momentum these days. So, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. We must have heard about this 1,000 times, but we have seldom tried to apply the same. Hence, the question remains, is formal education discovering geniuses or just leaving them behind? And can this formal education pattern really teach our children the skills they will need to make it in today's world? Our current education model has been proven to be ineffective, if I can say. Yeah, agreed, there is new education policy, and we might notice significant changes in the future. But as of now, the delivery system of formal education is boring and drab, with children lined up in rows of desks, just being lectured by the teachers. There's no participation, only memorization. And once we get past basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, the subjects taught in the schools do not effectively support our children. And this content taught rarely translate into their careers and endeavors. So there is an old Chinese proverb, probably all might have heard it also, that says, "Tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I might remember, but involve me, I'll finally understand." So, education should be such what inspires children to want to learn. And I feel experiential learning will go a long way for that for more reasons than one. First and foremost, it accelerates learning. Learning by rote has now been replaced by learning by doing. This methodology uses critical thinking, problem solving, decision making to deliver a training model, and this has become an established method to accelerate learning. Also, I feel it provides a safe learning environment. Stimulation simulations or in class learning activities where we use real life scenarios, they form an integral part of experiential learning. They depict several challenges which a participant will eventually face after school, after course completion, after their colleges. So it is only natural that mistakes happen during the course of learning, and using simulation is like taking kids to the playground, getting them to have fun, trying new things, learning, all in a safe, controlled environment. And in today's world of online teaching, the concept of virtual learning or virtual simulations has become all the more alive. There are so many sites like Google VR, Google Art and Culture, even virtual science labs, etc., 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 to make things really happen. Not only do you teach about India, you can take them on a virtual trip, as ma'am just pointed out, across the country. So we have to do something that they can reflect upon, they can explore on their own, giving them a YouTube video that you have created. Okay, see it and then explore it and then reflect upon it and then come up with something that you can learn about it. So this is the basic criteria of implementing experiential learning. Now, there are very few learning methods that have a dramatic impact on the learner's mindset, life attitude, and even career decisions that they make. So, experiential learning is one of them. Uh, let's take an example of teaching them about leadership. So, now leadership is like swimming. You cannot learn it just by reading about it. So, analysis of leadership concepts and its application in a real life scenario will go a long way in providing a lot of clarity to the kids and in actually deciding whether he or she is cut for that kind of profession. And the kids can realize their strengths, they can be awakened to their weaknesses. Who knows, after going through the whole process of leadership program, you might, as educators, produce the next Prime Minister of India, because now the child is clear about, okay, I can be successful in this. Let me shape my career in politics. Also, this kind of learning increases engagement levels. There is a high focus on collaboration and learning, and we can benefit from each other. And the participants are also involved in the problem solving activity or event. The level of ownership of the outcome is really, really high. The students are able to unpack the experience beyond surface examinations. Their assumptions are tested, their knowledge is consolidated again and again, and they realize what they are capable of. They can do that. So it is not only personal and effective in nature, it also influences the feelings and emotions and enhances the high retention power also. Next, I believe it is a radical departure from traditional learning methods, as we have been repeating it now. It takes the learning beyond classroom. The participants set their own learning pace, and this has introduced the concept of flipped classrooms, a concept which I really personally also love, and I engage my students actively in this off and on. This is a scenario, this is a model where the learning goes to the students and not the other way around. The procedure of flipped classroom model is in accordance with the ideology of experiential learning to T. Learners first they consolidate their experience through online, say, videos or the online lectures that you give, and then they prepare online understanding of what you have given them. You can also give them question answers. If they are not able to understand something, they can always come back to you, or they can discuss it with their peer, and amongst all that sharing and mutual concentration can happen among instructor and peers. So they are thus drawing new implication. It's a beautiful experience. I would request all the educators who are watching or will be watching to use this kind of experience in their class. There is one very beautiful website, say EdTech Education, etc., where you can create a video lecture, you can include questionnaire, you can share and discuss with them, and in the end, you can also assess them. So basically, essential experiential learning activities can help students to remain focused, learn differently, and learn faster. It is not a slow process. It is something that consolidates the learning. So the next thing is, how can the schools promote experiential learning? There are many ways. There are many ways. I'll just give you a few, but there are hundreds of ways to do that. For once, it is mock trials or debates. There are MUNs also. They are also real life scenarios, or they can organize business internships. They can set schools where students are responsible for some aspects of their daily life, such as cleaning or time management. Also, they can provide community service opportunities to the kids. The educators can also organize study tours to the other schools, even if it is another branch in the same city or a neighborhood school. It is absolutely okay. You can show them a movie or arrange a book reading sessions. English is my subject, so this is something I really love talking about, where the students enter the world of the story and they linger on the complexities of the perspectives of the protagonists. Other methods may include scientific experiments or open-ended inquiries, case studies, role-playing, playing the roles of influential figures in order to understand personal motivations in a history class also goes a long way. And there are also interactive classroom games, Kahoot or Socrative, you all must know about it. by now. So there are so many sites, there are so many platforms. You just have to go and explore, and you will get beautiful, beautiful material out of it. So now I hand over the next part of discussion to Ritika ma'am, who would present a very short overview of the learning theories of leading practitioners that have laid the fundamentals of experiential learning. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Narjeet. It was really good, and you have really given good insights about experiential learning. So, I just want to start with a quote that learning is an experience and everything else is information. And this is rightly said by Albert Einstein. Yes, learning is an experience. So, without experience, learning cannot happen. And that is the basis of experiential learning. And Kolbe in 1984, he gave a beautiful theory about this experiential learning cycle. And he has given 4 beautiful steps, very clear and concrete steps to explain learning. And I have taken an example, I think, which is a very easy example. I have not taken it from education. I've just, trying a recipe or making a cake. I have just taken that example so that the things become very clear, because experiential learning is not just for school students or for college going students. I think at every stage we are also following it. Every day is an experience for us and we are learning. So what the cycle says is the first point: concrete experience. So if, okay, I have seen a recipe, maybe I have seen a recipe on YouTube. I want to make a cake. So what I do, it's a hand-on experience for me. I'll just try that recipe. So trying that recipe, and then what can be the outcome? It may come out very well, or it may not come out very well, or there are chances of improvement, right? So I have made a cake, and cake might not be very good or very bad also, but yes, I have tried. So that's my first concrete experience, that I tried making that cake. Then what will be the second step? I will observe, I will ponder, I will keep a thought on it, that what can be done to make it better. And that is the second step, what we called as reflective observation. So that is the second step of this cycle after concrete experience. That is the stage of analysis where we're analyzing that what can be done. We talk about pros and cons of that. And then we think, okay, this can be done or this can't be done. So that is the stage of reflective observation. After reflective observation, the third stage is abstract conceptualization. Now here, I will keep a thought, maybe, I overbaked it. The taste was not good, or maybe it had a burning flavor. So what I'll do next? I will set the oven timer. So this is the stage where I am applying something, so that whenever next time I am preparing the cake comes out to be very well, right? So that is the stage of abstract conceptualization. And the fourth and the final stage is the active experimentation stage, where I'll try with my new method so that I come up with a better cake, right? So I'm talking about the 4 points of Kolbe's experiential cycle. That is the concrete experience, the reflective observation, the abstract conceptualization, and the active experimentation. And if we are designing our activities in our teaching process like this, I think it would be a great benefit to the students. We will be giving you some examples how we will be using in our education system. I'll be talking about, Dr. Narjeet will be talking about. And you will see that, yes, it's not such a difficult thing. We just need to think. We just need to design few activities which are joyful activities, which can be art integrated, which can be sport integrated, which could be ICT integrated. And these kind of integrations will make it a very joyful experience for the students also, because they will experience, they will just not learn. So that experience is very, very important. They will get to understand, they will get skills. And that is what in NEP 2020 we are looking for. When we talk of 10 bagless days, we want skill development, because our education system is such that even after passing 12th, a child does not have survival sticks. We cannot survive. We don't have those survival skills. Those skills need to be enhanced. And how that will be done? When we are experimenting, when we are exploring, and we are doing something. And that has to be done for our students. And that is the basis of experiential learning. So we need to get all such things collaborated. We have to make our classrooms inquiry based. We have to tell our students to raise up questions, to be inquisitive, to ask something. Only then this would be possible. And there are many methods by which we can do, which Dr. Narjeet will actually be talking about the experiential learning model. So over to you, Dr. Narjeet, for the model.
Yeah, so Ritika ma'am, has given us a beautiful recipe in all senses of a very happy classroom. So all these steps can be implemented. Actually, they can come alive in your own classrooms if we follow some simple steps. Aristotle, as once said, for the things that we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. So experiential learning model is designed around this concept only. And while designing lessons also, we as educators, teachers must know how to maximize a learner's understanding of important concepts. So I'll explain a few steps that we all can follow to bring this concept alive in our classrooms. The first is experience. Have your learners perform a task, have them perform an activity with absolutely no support from you. It can be anything, say an experiment or some exercise, some role play, some problem solving, even a small thing like making clay toys for smaller, younger kids. The whole idea is that learners must be doing something. You expect that the task may be unfamiliar to some learners and that they may stumble. But don't worry, just go ahead. But yes, make sure that you create a safe environment for them. So ideally, the tasks that you assign them should be slightly challenging in order to put learners out of their comfort zones. And the whole point is that you want the exploration to lead to reflection, which means feel that they are being challenged. For example, give them this simple exercise. I'll lead all the steps with this simple exercise. Ask them to breathe through a straw and then ask them to breathe through a coffee stirrer. Ask them to compare the difference and repeat the exercise while doing 10 jumping jacks. Oh, okay, you have given them experience. Now the second thing is sharing. Let the students share the result, describe the experience, get them thinking about and talking about the results, the reactions, their experiences. They must share them publicly. So here you may either have group exercises where learners get to share, or you may ask them to make observations and record them and then share it in a safe platform. As an educator, your role here is very, very important because you need to provide a safe platform to encourage learners to share their feelings. They must not feel humiliated. They must not feel as if they are being mocked or demeaned. So just acknowledge and accept the ideas that they are generating, wrong or right, because that is not the point. That is not the point. The point is, if the children are feeling hesitant, you should be there to encourage them to share their feeling. You can be ready to ask a series of questions to further help them to come out with the responses like, what did you do? What did you experience? What happened? What was difficult? What was easy? What worked well? What did not work well? Like the breathing exercise I talked about earlier, here you can ask them if they're not coming up with their responses, or if they're hesitant, you can ask them, what happened to your ability to breathe when you were doing this exercise? Were you able to take as much oxygen as you needed? So on and so forth. The next is process. Even learners have to examine and analyze and reflect upon their experience. This is how learning process works. Here you may design exercises where learners discuss and reflect on their experience, or you may arrange, open or group or one-to-one discussions where they can share their things, share their experiences. Again, I am again and again stressing on the word experience because that is the essence of what we are talking today. So encourage the group to look for patterns of discussions as they unfold. Get them to share any similar experience that they have had in the past. Again, I'll take that breathing exercise, which I'm continuing with right now. Ask them, what could happen if you were forced to breathe like this always? Would you be able to do things currently? Would you have to alter some of your activities? Do you know somebody who suffered because of this? Things like that. Then is generalization. Like, they need to be able to connect this experience to other examples. They need to generalize what they have gone through, what they have felt, and reflect on it by connecting it to real world examples. Here, as educators, you may generate exercises that help bring real life and real world scenarios to surface so that the learners can compare them to what you just went through. You really need to get the learners to look for trends and patterns. Help them to see what can be generalized. Encourage them to see how they have experienced, how this experience can relate to other experiences in their lives. Again, taking that breathing examples we were continuing, here you can always ask them, is life more difficult for people who smoke or who suffer from lung diseases? Do you think you can feel the pain of those people now? Right? Has there been a time when you had a condition that limited your participation in your favorite activity? And how would you describe their experience? If you were to step into the shoes of those people, how would you describe that? And the next and the last one is application. We need to apply also what we have learned in different situations. So here the learners apply what was learned. It can be in the project based or in the mini exercises. You can arrange different discussion groups for them, what they found wrong about it, how that can be corrected, what was their personal take on it. So everything can be generalized, everything can be applied. And this is very, very important for you as an educator to start and to finish it also. It's not that you leave them in between. It's very important for you to finish it off also. So this is your chance to get the learners understand and plan what they can use, what they have experienced. These simple exercises will go a long way in getting your learners excited about self-learning and self-exploration. So you have to get your students as educators be ready to ask leading questions, gain insights, create novel exercises, increase interactions. It is very important to know what they're supposed to do, right? Don't leave them, stumbling in the mid somewhere. Don't just say, go out, find out about X, come back, discuss with each other. No, this is not how we create creative solutions to increase their involvement or their commitment or their curiosity or their problem solving. And last but not the least, I would really, really prefer that you praise your learners for their achievements. This encourages them to put more effort into exploration, reflection, analysis, experimentation as they go through this loop of experiential learning. So I guess Ritika ma'am would give us more insights on the significance of the experience of the teacher in realizing the relationship with students appropriately from the perspective of the student outcomes now. Over to you, Ritika ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Arjit, very well said that yes, we have to take care of learners. So I would say that inside every child is a rainbow and yes, they're ready to show colors. But how to bring out those colors? That is with the facilitator, that is with the teacher. And the role of teacher and the student is very, very important in the experiential learning process. Because what we are following today is a curriculum which is teacher-centered. A teacher is an authority. She comes up, she prepares a lesson, she comes and she delivers. But what we require is a student-centered curriculum. A curriculum where a child gets experience. It's just not the teacher, as I rightly said before also, that she comes and she delivers. No. We want the students to experience. And we have to be different from the traditional model which we are following from so many years. So a teacher has to be a guide. Without teachers, teaching can't happen. A teacher has to be a guide or a facilitator. As you rightly said, you can't just run away in between and tell the students to, look for everything. No, you have to assist them. That assistance is required at every step. And whatever activities even you are preparing, you have to keep in mind about the age of the students, about their mental level and everything. I mean, everything can't be applied universally on all the students. So that is the job of the instructor. And we have to, as Dr. Narjeet said, we have to design activities where we can have case studies, where we have brainstorming, where we have simulations, where we have role play, and so many other methods are there. And that has already been discussed. What will happen? The students will start actively participating, and that active role has to be there because we want our students to be active in their participation. So if it is not a monotonous class and maybe we are giving some role play, or we are giving them some case study, or they are exploring something in a group activity, then what will happen? They will start investigating. They will start inquiring. And that is what is required. And that participation from passive to active is the requirement for experiential learning process, because we want that our children should learn to investigate, to take initiatives also. And what will happen? The learning process will become interesting. They will have those 21st century skills, the problem solving skills, the critical thinking skills. That is very much required. So what happens when we give such activities? They boost up the learning process. They accelerate learning, and they improve the content retention also. Because just reading the books or hearing it from the teacher is not going to gain them anything. They will just remember it for a very short span of time. And by the time we have their next class, they will just forget what the teacher had taught. But if we are giving them some activities to engage, believe me, throughout their life, they will not forget. They will enjoy. Learning will be an enjoyable process. And as I started, that they have lost interest in learning. So what will happen now? If we are giving them good activities, they will enjoy the learning process. They will not get bored. And that learning process will become very, very beneficial for the students. So I hand over to Dr. Narjeet. She will tell about storytelling as a pedagogical tool, and she will tell about field trips. They are very, very important in many aspects, how we can use in our teaching process. So over to you, Dr. Narjeet.
Yeah, thank you, Ritika ma'am. You very rightly said activities actually boost up the level of understanding. And to boost this kind of understanding, there are many methods that we can apply in experiential learning. So as an educator, I believe that the educational experience of the learners is only a success when the information they have been taught has been retained. As you just rightly mentioned, retention is very important, and that too in a manner that allows them to apply it to the real life. Otherwise, there is no use going through the entire process. You as educators, we as educators, we can pour out facts, give them tasks, give them assignments, provide guidance. But if the students aren't absorbing this information, everything is pointless. It is therefore the responsibility of us educators to utilize various methods of teaching that reaches the minds of our students. So in plain terms, this kind of learning is the concept through experience or by doing. And through this method, students are often taken outside of the traditional learning environment and into scenarios which allow them to develop knowledge, skills, and comprehension of various subjects. For students, this form of education comes through many activities like, say, internship, work studies, case studies, travels, trips. And for me personally, I feel field trips are a great example of experiential learning. Not only do they provide a way for students to get out of the classroom, but it also helps them to reinforce what they are learning in the classroom. And that definitely piques their interest in education. Imagine trying to lecture a group of 7 or even 13-year-olds on Indian history. Some will absorb, others won't grasp the concept at all. And in some cases, I'm sorry, students just lose interest in the mid of the teaching. So if these lectures, course readings, class projects, homework assignments, however, they are all backed up with immersive experience trip like a trip to the museum, the outcome is a lot better. To see the paintings, antique jewelry, sculptures, and other artifacts that have been preserved throughout the years paints a very different pictures in the minds of the students. They are touching, they are seeing, they are remembering, and this retention, this memory is for life. They won't ever forget this. This is also an ideal experimentation learning opportunity also. So in order for students to pay attention to what is being taught, the brain needs to be engaged, right? Which essentially means finding ways to present the information that has meaning enough to result in an emotional response from students. Younger children especially hold on to information best when it is received in a manner that piques their interest and involves some sort of interaction. They know they don't need to be taken to far away, exotic, expensive places, trips. No, taking younger kids to nearby supermarkets also will help them learn about the fruits, vegetables, colors, shapes, etc., 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 more than you can ever teach them in the class. My personal belief is that, and I really apply that also when I ask my teachers to do the same. Or simply these for younger children. For the elder ones also, you can take them to architectural structures, for example, say temples nearby. It lets them see the importance of learning about geometry and how it can be applied. The beautiful heritage of India can also be shown to them through all these experiences. And all these experiences, excitements, can be tied back to classroom lessons and academic concepts. Who knows, it may generate a renewed sense of learning in many of them. So I feel field trips can be used to help students hone in onto their interpersonal skills also. So when they are in new environments, they learn quickly. They learn how to adapt to their environment. They tend to do things like paying attention, they're following instructions, executing instructions, which is a whole lot better on a field trip. Trust me, it is a whole lot better on a field trip than actually in the classroom. And as they sit in the bus together, we all have noticed how they establish a beautiful buddy system, singing together, dancing together, even performing other interesting activities that binds them. So this way, students are learning the importance of teamwork, effective listening, communication skills, adaptabilities, and these skills are preparing them for life, not only for passing class 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th examinations, but preparing them to have a beautiful future ahead. So it can also help children to shape the future. As I just mentioned, perhaps if it is on one of these trips, you take them to a wellness center, you take them to a farmer's market, and that got the student interested in health and wellness. So as she grows, they can shift their studies towards those interests, which they have not forgotten. You never know, they might study Ayurvedic medicine, they might start a spa, they might start a institution or they can become a nutritionist, a dietitian, which we are all looking forward to these days, wellness and health. So you never know how it can inspire children. So moving on, I think there is a kind of learning that can take place in the traditional classroom, and then there is learning through storytelling and role plays. Telling stories or make students perform stories allow them to become aware, alert, agile, and at the same time they're learning. So as educators, you can spend all the time in the classroom reflecting, discussing, learning. But trust me, if you divide your time between teaching a concept and then making them act out the same concept, say either in the hall or the AV room or even inside the classroom, the results are simply awesome. Giving artistic expression to the class you want them to learn, the concept that you want them to learn, is always an influential form of learning. Even if there is no drumming, no dancing, no painting, trust me, the impact is huge and everlasting. I have tried everything that I'm speaking about. So these actual activities turn into excuses for kids. Also, again, I say to know each other, to form a lifelong friendship, to be learning from each other, and so on and so forth. So stories are meant to bring meaning to concepts that are dry and lifeless in their own. Just invite your students into storytelling process. Give them enough to understand and follow, but don't spoon feed them. Don't tell them everything. As I told earlier also, let them experience, let them do, let them come out of their comfort zones, let them apply their brains, let them apply their creativity. The idea is about giving voice and creating an opportunity for stories to be told and heard that might not necessarily otherwise be. You can have skits, you can have poems, you can have poems in the skits, you can add drama, you can add props or effects, set the scene, anything. Just give way to their creativity, give way to their curiosity. And there are many ways to apply this. I'll give you a couple of examples. Say if it is a history lesson about the major events in World War II, we have a student paste or write the events along the timeline as you are telling the story. When you are done, the timeline is filled and that acts as a visual prop. You have also prepared a prop in the process. And if your story teaches abstract concepts like finding real life examples, that makes the information all the more meaningful. So again, if you're trying to teach World War One, put the events in different contexts. Imagine it now the present day and with the present government. How would the scene of World War play out in 2020 versus 1914? How is it going to be suddenly changed? And history, believe me, will come alive in your class. It will be lived in your class. It will be taken care. The students are going to take care of everything that they have to learn also. Also music, I find music also an excellent way to learn and memorize long lists. So if you're teaching the states of India, learning states of India, so many states can be boring. But a song with a catchy rhythm will help them solidify the memorization process. Ask the kids to create it, to perform it. Trust me, you are in for beautiful surprises there. I have tried all of this with parts of speech, with other things in English. And trust me, it really, really, really worked wonders. So in the next part of the discussion, I believe Ritika ma'am will take the thought forward into experiential learning methods, more methods, involving methods that help students relate theory to practice and analyze the real life situations. Over to you, Ritika ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Narjeet. You rightly said, tell me, I'll forget, show me, I might remember, and involve me, I'll finally understand. And yes, she has given beautiful ways of how to involve students. And everywhere, whether it is English, whether it is social sciences, whether it is sciences or mathematics, everywhere we can design activities to make students involved, make students understand. So as a chemistry teacher, I'm just sharing a very small activity with you people. There is a process called saponification. We prepare soaps by that method, and that is taught usually to class 10th. Now, if I'm just teaching that method, okay, so soaps are prepared by the reaction of fats or oils with sodium hydroxide and heating them. They will remember it for a while or not, or maybe, they will not even try to think over it. But if the same process, I say, okay, we are going to prepare soap, and all the students, they are given groups that you have to prepare their own soaps. They have to collect the raw material. They have to weigh how much raw material is required, what will be the exact reaction, in what ratio the compounds are required and heated. And then they are told to, add fragrance or maybe add colors to that soap. And then they have to sell this soap. Maybe, open house in the schools or some exhibitions in the school, and they have to sell it. So they are told to use marketing strategies. Maybe they have to make advertisements. So what will happen? They will make posters, they will make advertisements, they will prepare soap, they will calculate profit and loss. How many subjects, how many strategies have we brought together just in preparation of soap? And what will happen? We are not just teaching them chemistry, we are teaching them so many skills at that time. They have learned the process of saponification because they have prepared it themselves. They have learned chemistry, but with chemistry, what all they have learned, whether you talk about their group activities, leadership qualities are there. You know, one will be a team leader who will lead. There will be a lot, many other things which will come in between. That would be a multidisciplinary approach. That would be a transdisciplinary approach where they are learning so many skills at one time. So such processes are required, such activities are required when we are teaching. And we are getting a question that we need to train private tutors, trainers of tomorrow at ground level. Yes, because it is the NEP 2020 is just not, giving the information to the students and making them learn. A lot is going to change. A lot is going to change, and we have to actually change ourselves. Yes, the private tutors or the traders have to be very, very different from what is going on from so many years, because this is actually going to be a very, very different method. So designing activities of any sort, that is very important for a teacher to make the classroom an interactive classroom and to give a hands-on experience to the students. That's very, very important. The second strategy, what I want to talk about is peer tutoring and peer assessment. And that is actually giving a lot of weightage nowadays. And after any, implementation of NEP 2020, this is going to be very, very important, because it's just not the teacher who is assessing a child. Peers are also assessing a child. So group activities are very, very important for students to build up many skills. So we need not, just give them something to learn. We need to give them something to do. And when we are giving them something to do, they will naturally learn themselves. The learning process will occur naturally. And let them explore, let them discuss, and let them put their ideas. When they're putting their ideas, when they're bringing their viewpoints, listen to them carefully. And when peer tutoring comes, make groups, give them some topics, let them teach those topics to their other friends and see how they are doing it. And believe me, teaching is the best experience. When we became teachers, we learned a lot. And when a student behaves like a teacher, and when he or she is teaching their fellow friends, what will happen? They will understand better. That understanding will come during peer tutoring. And then, you give them, okay, now you assess your friends. How well, maybe a project, maybe some case study, maybe something else. And believe me, they will come out with wonderful ideas. We can't underestimate our students. They will actually come out with wonderful ideas, and this is an integrated pedagogy. So they learn how to question, they learn how to evaluate, and they will look for evidence. That is very important. They will just not accept the truth which is written in the book. They have to look for evidence, and that is a requirement. So lastly, I would say the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but it is a fire to be kindled. So keep that spark in the students. And I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Narjeet, who will tell about more about experiential learning and certain myths about experiential learning too. So over to you, Dr. Narjeet.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I need to assert once again, as Ritika ma'am said, please don't underestimate your kids. Them to you want them to be. You just have to give them a platform, and they will surprise you in more ways than one. Because experiential learning is the future of learning. And you have to apply this pedagogy to make educational environment student-centric. Let the students control their learning. That let them think critically, evaluate, make decisions, construct knowledge. Everything they are capable of doing everything on their own. You just have to show them ways. You just have to guide them. And while applying this kind of learning in the class, we must understand that it is not about just simply doing too many hand-on activities in the class. Just because the activity is hands-on does not mean it is mind-on. Many projects, field trips, situation, they do not yield lasting outcomes or the results because too little or negligible time is given to assimilate and conceptualize the experience of the children. Taking students out for a visit without any specific aim, without any learning aim, will do them more harm than good. Just believe me there. So don't just take them out on trips just for the sake of doing it. No, implementing this kind of learning should be in its true spirit. And since experiential learning is engaging and it caters to the learner's real life experiences, it helps the learners relate and understand the topic at hand, and it makes learning interesting. It is using and applying knowledge in a constructive, beautiful, innovative manner. So the essence of experiential learning, taking the learner on a journey where the available resources are somewhere that surround us in everyday life. Now that does not mean that you have to have expensive set of resources and you have to go and buy them. No, the best kind of resources are free to obtain, and those are say digital resources. Design your activities around them. Use online kitchen to teach them home science. Use virtual labs for conducting experiments. Share climate work bundles to teach them geography, or simply take them on a virtual field trip to heritage sites and places to teach them history. The awareness of the environment and the resources together boost the confidence of the learners, and it helps them to get them engaged. You have to be a little creative in designing those exercises. The rest you leave to the students. They are going to give you the best time of your life. Because my philosophy for teaching is learning, and learning is that everything should be inspiring. It should inspire. It should awe and captivate the mind and imagination. And that ought to be fun and memorable also. You cannot go all strict on the child and then restrict their creativity and then you say that I am doing experience. No, that cannot be learning. That has to be fun. I feel that the present system of education is a little wrong. The mind is cramped with facts before it knows really how to think. We may read books, we may hear lectures, but experience is the one teacher, the one eye-opener. I have been, repeating this word experience throughout my discussion. Even Ritika ma'am has been doing so, because this, my dear, is the best as it can be. We learn through our smiles and tears. We learn through our mistakes. We learn when we fail. We walk up, we stand up when we fall. So no one is really taught by another. Each one has to teach. You have to just guide. We are external teachers. We as external teachers can offer only suggestions, but they should be such that rouses the internal teacher, which is the mind, the soul, the brain, to work to understand things. So educate the kids so that they may be able to solve their own problems. You cannot be there with them throughout their lives. Make them stand on their own feet, as we always say. Teach them how to rather than what. Teach them how to. And until that is done, all these ideal reforms will remain only ideas. So this is all from my side. And I hope that this discussion is going to open new and innovative ways for educators to try all these in their own classrooms. Over to you, Ritika ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Narjeet. And I hope this experiential process, what we have talked about, is just not talked about and it is experienced. So that
Yes.
experience is a must. And we look forward that whosoever is hearing this from us starts this in their classes. And let's hope for something new next time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good night.